Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today I'll be reviewing the S.H.Figuarts Guts Berserker Armor Heat of Passion. Now this is the third S.H.Figuarts Berserk figure and the second Guts that they've released. This one is pretty much designed to address almost every issue that the first Guts had, mainly being an actual transformed Berserker armor, but with better posability, can hold his weapons better, and is just easier to play with. Now, I didn't have too much of an issue with the original Guts, but I would be lying if I didn't struggle putting him together or getting him to stay in a pose, just because of all the intricate detail that was on his outfit, all the belts, daggers, and everything like that. Stories of him breaking in other people's hands, seeing some broken firsthand, as well as the awkward weight distribution and strange proportions, because his arms were quite long, but if it's in a pose, it's pretty fine. But the sword definitely weighed him down, and it was hard to plug his hands in because of the weird straight peg design. It was a whole thing, but this figure aims to generally address a lot of that, mainly due to the Berserker armor being a more streamlined design with a lot less going on to get in the way. Now, I haven't read or watched enough of Berserk to get up to this part because I didn't watch the 2016 anime and I haven't read the manga. But I did play the Dynasty Warriors game, Berserk Band of the Hawk, and that was pretty cool, and that had the Berserker armor in it as well. But that was many years ago, so I don't remember the exact details of the story, but I remember the Berserker armor being cool, and I wanted to get a cool figure. So, taken out of the box, you can see what we're dealing with. We've got the figure itself, we've got 3 alternate head sculpts, 2 swappable faces, several different collars, a bunch of different hands. We've got the behilt background similar to the other releases. We've got Guts' sword, we've got his cape, as well as an arm cannon. So it's a pretty good loadout. It seems to be exactly what you need in this figure, and the options and ways you can blend a lot of these accessories is quite interesting. So taken out of the box here is the Guts without the cape, and he looks very lanky and very awkward. The sculpt and colouring is very good. There's a lot of detail work done. When you get up close, there's a lot of these intricate line work throughout the entire armour, which looks quite nice. It's not just shades of black. I do like the asymmetrical look of the eyes, because Guts has one eye scarred, I believe. That's probably why only one is glowing. But it looks really good and catches the light very well. Aesthetically, this is still a quite lanky figure, similar to the other Guts, but I think the design fits the Berserker armor like this way better and doesn't look nearly as awkward. But it looks pretty good from all angles. It is definitely missing the cape, and once we put it on, it will look way, way, way better. But generally, the sculpt is quite good. Mine does have 2 QC problems. One that I fixed and one that I didn't. So on his jaw, on the base Berserker armor face, the jaw doesn't sit symmetrically, so it's sort of off to the side a little bit, and it looks a bit awkward in person. I think it looks okay on camera, but it does bother me a bit. It's sort of like his jaw's not aligned properly. And the other QC issue is his foot. The pin that's holding his toe together, so for the toe bend, I was not put in properly and not put in all the way, so I had to take out the pin and realign it, drill a bigger hole for the foot, and slot the pin in properly, and it is perfectly fine now. But that was just something that I saw in my copy. Hopefully it's not the same for everyone else, but that was pretty annoying. Next, we'll do a quick size comparison. So here's Guts up against the previous released Griffith. Here he is next to the S.H.Figuarts Guts, and you can see sort of how they stack up and the differences in the armor, even though there are a lot of aesthetic similarities, because Guts is still wearing that Berserker armor, but it looks different here. And here he is next to the Jada Toys Ryu. I just thought it'd be fun to put him next to a figure in a completely different line, and they look pretty good together. Now, posability on Guts, he's got a ball joint at the head and neck. The head one is a little bit stiff. It's a bit different for each of the head sculpts, but generally it's about the same. There's a ball joint in the upper cap as well as a hinge at the bottom jaw. So you can look up that far and down that far. His arms can move out that far unassisted, and you can see the armor sort of accordion out. So his arm can butterfly in that far, which is pretty alright. I think you can get a bit more if you work at it. There is an upper arm swivel, bend at the elbow, and hinge at the wrist. The arm can also rotate all the way around, but you just need to be careful of the actual armor that is floating around on his arms. He has a ball joint in the upper chest, which allows for his arcing back and ab crunch. There is a lot of floating armor as well, so it might misalign as you go around. His legs can kick forward and back that far, as well as do the splits. There's a thigh swivel, bend at the knee, and pivot and hinge at the toe. There are also a set of alternate legs that you can swap out for an even deeper bend, even though this figure can get a pretty good bend on its own. But posability is pretty good. It feels more solid than the previous Guts, but it is still loose in certain areas and has a bit of trouble carrying weight beyond its means. Accessories wise, he comes with the Berserker armor head out of the box, which looks nice. I like the asymmetrical eyes. He's got a sort of half transformed Berserker armor sort of face, which has an alternate collar, and you're meant to put this teeth gritted look where it's sort of creeping along his face, and it looks quite good. Without the mask, this is what it looks like. And you also get a sort of serious, just standard face as well, which is compatible with the other head sculpts too. So there's also a Skull Knight looking head, and that has its own collar as well. And you can also use that teeth gritted face on here too. And you can even fit the Skull Knight head on the armor without a face at all, which I believe is how Guts found the Berserker armor initially, so you can sort of recreate that sequence. But with all of those accessories, he can get into some pretty good dynamic poses. I am pretty happy with how deep his bend is normally. The swappable legs are a bit of a pain to put in, and they do get the job done, but you can still get a lot of the deep crunching poses without that accessory, and it still looks fine, just not as deep a bend. He can hold his sword better than the other Guts, and I think that's because there is a ball joint at the end of the hinge on his wrist, instead of the weird straight peg thing that it did before. And while he holds it better, the weight is still too much for him, so you still need to rest it in certain ways for him to actually hold it competently. But he can stand on his own quite well, and I am happy about that. I just like being able to pose this figure around with or without a base, and him keeping the pose for the most part, and not all of the armor pieces bending and crunching into each other constantly. Yes, that still happens, but a lot of those parts are soft plastic, and you don't need to worry about belts made in a solid plastic getting crunched in different ways and parts just breaking off him entirely. So I am way more confident in moving this figure around. Still not 100% satisfied with it, but it is a massive improvement over the original. And with the cape, he looks even better. And the bendy wire in the cape is pretty much exactly the same as the other Guts. I think this is exactly the same cape as the other Guts, and it worked pretty well then, and it works well now. And I didn't have too much of an issue using it. And generally, I had a lot of fun with the figure. Like I said earlier, still not perfect, but we are definitely on the right track. I am curious about the re-release of the first Guts coming later in the year. If he addresses a lot of the QC, he might be a way better figure, but I still think all the accessories around his body will still be a massive hindrance to the figure. But overall, this is a good step in the right direction. We'll see what they do further down the line, seeing as they're teasing the Witch as well as Zod. So I'm keen to see what they try out. But that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you all